Welcome, everyone, to Biblical History, and I'm with you again. Art McCarroll is your host, continuing on the subject of overall who is God and what is He. To understand God is beyond comprehension, and we're finding this out. But today, we've come to a very important crossroads. We're finding, in covering the book of Romans, and Paul, who hadn't been there, is telling them the full story right from the beginning, concluding all the way to the end. And today we're going to deal with God's judgment. How does God judge? Well, He has a principle that He believes in. You shouldn't be a judge unless you know what you're doing. How many judges do we have in the world today, let alone any country, who really shouldn't be judges? I had an opportunity over a period of time to know judges and people who were lawyers who became judges. I'm sorry, people, in most cases, too many of you became judges by those people who they like. They thought they were good lawyers, so therefore they must be a good judge. You know, you can be a good lawyer and a lousy judge. Because first, the lawyer's job is to prove you're innocent, right? Isn't that why you usually get them, how to keep you out of trouble? That's why you get a lawyer. But how do you know they can judge fairly? How do you know their judgment is just? Well, God gives you a principle that covers it. Again, very simple, very easy to follow. Going on in Romans, we've gone the entire first chapter of Romans. So he goes on now, he talks about judgment. And frankly, he's going to talk about judgment right to the ones who are really causing trouble to the Gentile Romans at Rome. They were the Jews. The Jews were telling them they had to be circumcised and keep the law of Moses. And if they didn't do that, they couldn't be a child of God. That's a false judgment. So here Paul is speaking to the people who are upsetting the Christian growth. They were the Jews who were trying to put on their righteousness of the law. And that's what the Jews were told, that the righteousness of the law to all of Israel was their righteousness. The law told them what righteousness was. But there's far more to it, as we're learning, than just knowing the law of God or the Ten Commandments. There's far, far beyond that what we have to be. We have to become like God. Anything short of becoming exactly like God is not a good judge. They're a lousy judge. Notice Romans 2 and verse 1, that's what God tells us. Look what Paul wrote. He says, therefore you judge, are inexcusable. It's unforgivable. O man, whosoever you are that judges, for wherein do you judge another, you condemn yourself, for you, the judge, do the same thing. That's the principle. How can you be a judge when you commit the same crimes? And that's why we have so many judges that are indifferent, because they know they commit the same crimes, so they always give lesser sentences to those who commit the crimes they do. They are even willing, some are so bad, some judges, they're even willing to give you a very short time for murdering somebody as opposed to stealing. They do. You can almost tell how a judge thinks by the penalty he issues. Or she. Not only he, but he, she. So if you judge and yet in your mind the way you think is different than what you're judging, you're doing the same thing they're doing. You should excuse yourself. I forget what they call it in the judicial system. You recluse, what do they call that? I forget, but it doesn't matter. You know what I mean. They step down from the case and they say, I can't judge it because I'd be prejudiced. If you as a judge has one iota, one speck, one drop, one little piece that goes along with the crime that was committed, you've got to excuse yourself as being judge. That's why they don't take hearsay. One basic principle in all judges of the world, they don't hear hearsay. In other words, if a direct witness, an eyewitness who heard and saw what happened, if you're not in that witness program, if you are witnessing just by what you think, you are not to be a witness. But that applies to the judge, doesn't it? See, if you're a judge and you think like the person who committed the crime, how could you dare be a judge? How could you do it? You can't. Again, we're getting simple, aren't we? This is how God judges. The first principle, you've got to be pure in your mind. You've got to agree with the law as it's stated, as it's given, not how you think it should be interpreted. Judges are not permitted to interpret the law. Then you're a lawyer, and stay a lawyer. I'm not telling you being a lawyer, you shouldn't do it. When I'm telling you, you have no right to be a judge. Make sense to you? Well, that's what Paul said that God tells you. Verse 2, but we are sure that the judgment of God is according to truth. So here we go to feelings again. If you even feel sorry for the person who committed the crime, you got to excuse yourself. You've got to step down from that case and say, hey, I can be a lawyer, but I can't be a judge. I can't do it. I don't have the motivation. I don't have the belief. I'm being asked to judge something that I can't do. That's the problem. This is principle number 1. Or despises you the riches of the goodness and forbearance, the patience and long-suffering, not knowing that the goodness of God leads you to repentance. Only God knows how to rehabilitate you. That's why you have to follow a law. Nations have to establish laws for your good, not for laws that are for your bad. That's the second principle, and that's very important. So we see 2 things we've learned so far in this segment. We see that number 1, if you feel the person is not that guilty, or secondly, if you find out yourself that being merciful can't be considered, you've got to not be judging that way. So we'll take a quick stop here and then continue. Now, Paul continues showing not only the long-suffering and patience of God, but he gets into this ungodly mind, this person who's judging unfairly. And he says, but after your hardness, and again, we see that we need to look at hardness, and hardness means something is like a stone. Try to break a stone. It's pretty hard, isn't it? You're not going to move that stone, or a stone that's heavier than you can move. It's stubborn. It's that difficult, and it takes too much work. It'll never happen. And then impenitent heart, you don't even have the capability to do it. You don't know how to do it because you're so stubborn, you're so hard-nosed. And the hard-nosed, I know, I've heard it a lot, but I didn't know the nose was involved. You know, some people, you know, when they get so mad, you know, they huff and they puff, they go, that's what they do. They literally, the nose starts sucking in air. You know what it means? They want a lot of air, they can tell you off. Because you can't speak without breathing. So there you go again. It has a good meaning behind it. So your penitent heart treasures up yours within yourself the wrath against the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God. So now he's gotten down to the place, he says, you're totally sick. You have become so out of sync with the norm. You're so different. Like a wife says, you're not the man I married. Or the man says, you're not the woman I married. Well, there's something bothering both of you. When you have family troubles. You know, partly, if you only get together as a family at Thanksgiving or some of the other holidays, you know what happens then? You didn't get together enough. I mean, after all, if you only meet for the holidays, you're both developing different ideas and different ways of thinking in between, aren't you? You really don't know each other anymore. So you get together and you tell how different you are. So very few people have a pleasant holiday. That's how it goes. You see how human we are? You see how simple it is to understand it? If you want to know someone, you have to spend time with them. If you don't spend time with them, you're not going to know them. And if you just spend all your time with friends because you have fun or a good time and you feel at ease, you're never going to know your family and you'll become hostile to each other. And that's what causes hostility. Time is important. Just as if you cut yourself off from God and you don't want to think of God, you don't want to talk to God, you don't want to sit and meditate about Him or what He's telling you to do. You want to spend very little time with God when you go to church. And that guy is one of two kinds of preacher you got. You got the preacher who's teaching you hellfire, or he's teaching you to love each other. It's one or the other. So you walk out either way satisfied, right? Because he scared you to death, and you're going to walk out and say, I'm never going to do that again. Or he's teaching you another way, and you're thinking, how good, boy, was that a good sermon. I love that sermon. You know when you see a movie and it has a dramatic, horrific, bad, evil ending, how do you feel when you walk out of that movie? Rotten. But if it makes you feel like, hey, I can be like that. I remember as a child going to the movies. And, you know, my parents were pretty careful. They only wanted me to see basically movies that make me feel good. And I'd walk out, and I remember saying this to my mind. Here's a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old. You know what I'd say? I'm going to be like that. Did you ever say that as a kid? I did. Over and over and over again. One time, my parents took me to see The Bride of Frankenstein. I I was so scared. Today they laugh at it. Kids go and they laugh at horror today. Today horror is in. The worse it is, the better the movie. And they laugh at it. Wait till you feel it. You're not going to laugh anymore. But I remember in the movie, behind the seats, we had different seats than they have today. You literally could hide behind the seat. And I remember I just had my eyes slightly above the seat. And every time I'd see something that really scared the death out of me, I'd poke my head under the seat. I walked out of there and saying, I'm scared, Mom and Dad. I'm afraid. That's the only two kinds you get. And I remember it thoroughly. So you see, if you have hope in good thoughts, in good things, in the way that you think and what you're doing, as opposed to bad thoughts, so you tend to be a person who will judge people honestly, properly, as a whole, the complete self, and render fair judgment according to the law. That's what you'll do. So this is what he's seeing. In verse 6 in Romans 2, here's what he said. Who will render to every man according to his deeds. That's judgment. That's godly judgment. That's proper judgment. To them who by patient continuance. So you got to have hope. You've got to see the bright side. In well-doing. Doing what's good for everyone, even the person that you're condemning and have to pass a law. Even for them. Sometimes you're better off with a person that they be put to death than live the way they're living. People commit suicide. That's what they think. That's the reality of it. So we're starting to see now more realistically what godly judgment is. Godly judgment has to, in each and every case, think about the good of the person that's being judged. Am I looking at this person of how I can help them or how I can destroy them? Now, God never commits murder. When he puts somebody to death, we know he's going to resurrect them, right? So he can't murder. He might have you killed, but he won't murder you because God only puts you to death for your good to resurrect you in the future, and that's godly judgment. And that is the end of this section that we're covering at this time. God now concludes how he judges, where Paul writes it to us and spells it out very clearly. What is the right way to judge? So he finalizes how we should judge God's way. So it states in Romans 2 and verse 10, but glory, honor, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first and also to the Gentile. So don't start getting this racial stuff in or this cultural difference in or whatever difference between people, because God never judges that way. He just doesn't do it that way. For there is no respect of persons with God. If you're guilty, you're guilty. If you're not guilty, you're not guilty. It doesn't matter who or what you are. Don't try to make someone what they aren't. Don't start making up in your mind whether someone's a racist or a culturist or a nationalist, all right? Don't start doing that. That is a zero judge. No judgment. That means you're completely going by feelings. You're moved by your own emotion, your heart. So it gets down to the heart. The heart of the matter, we say. That's where we get. For as many as have sinned without law shall also perish without law. In other words, you're going to die anyway because you were sinning. And as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. So if you're going to sin, you're guilty. That's it. And if you're not, you're not. Forget about emotions. Forget about being stubborn. Forget about being hard-hearted. Forget about not knowing what you're doing, all right? For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified, the ones who follow it. Just the way it's intended to be, not the way you want it to be. If you make laws as a president or a Congress or a parliament or a prime minister or a king or a dictator, if you make the laws interpreted your way, you're no judge. You are illegal. You have no right to do that. For when the Gentiles, now here's the point, remember, he's reprimanding the Jews here because they're going around telling the people they have to follow the old covenant law of Moses. For when the Gentile, which have not the law, do by nature, it's natural in them. They wouldn't do anything against the law just automatically because it's opposed to what they are. Their heart is such they wouldn't want to do it. So if they have no law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law, that's the letter of the law doing it. In other words, thinking you're commanded to do it, then it are a law unto themselves. If your nature changes, if the Holy Spirit is in you and changing you to judge like God, then it's automatically the way you would do it anyway. You wouldn't do it any other way. You wouldn't be stubborn. You wouldn't be hard-hearted. You wouldn't be confused in how to do it. You would just do it that way. It's you. It's what you are. It is the heart of the matter. So he said, which show the work of the law written in their hearts. There it is. The very essence of what you are, how you think, how you act, what you do. It's in their hearts, their conscience. It would bother your mind. Instead of being hard-hearted and thinking you're right, it's just the opposite. Within your own conscience, you couldn't do it. It would be opposed to you because you're not that. Also bearing witness. So you, by this natural way that you are by nature through God's Holy Spirit in you, judging people God's way, and their thoughts, the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another. In other words, unless you actually see someone doing wrong and you tell them they did wrong. Now, it doesn't mean you hate them. That's another big mistake we make. We equate hate. That we must have hate. There's no hate. If I see someone steal $1 million out of the bank, I saw it. I'm not fantasizing. I'm seeing it. I know what it is. In my conscious mind, I'm that way. And if you didn't, you didn't. And if you did, I start to understand. Then in verse 16, and the day when God shall judge the secrets of men, their true feelings, their true heart, by Jesus Christ according to my gospel. That's why all judgment, we read in John 5, is committed unto Jesus. He lived it all, did it all, understands it all. He was tempted in every way that we were. Every single negative aspect of human nature, Jesus felt. But he refused to capitulate. He wouldn't give in to it. He wanted to do the will of his Father because his Father told him it's the thing to do. He honored his Father. Verse 17, he told them, Behold, thou art called a Jew, and rest in the law. And makes your boast of God. You tell me you know who God is. And I'm a law keeper. And notice his will. You know even what his will is as a Jew. He wants to make you in his image. And approves the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law. You think, well, because the law teaches you, you're superior. You're a better judge. No, you might just be a good lawyer, like I told you, but not a good judge. And are confident that you yourself are a guide of the blind. You're the one who shows them the right way. A light of them which are in darkness, who don't know better. Now we're down to the pithy part of it. It's just like O'Reilly says, don't get pithy. Pithy, what it's telling you, it means that you're getting down to things that you don't understand. You're just responding in an aggravated, upset way. Don't be upset. Don't be aggravated. Be patient. Be loving. Be forgiving. Be understanding. Be long-suffering. Administer the law as it really is, but don't be pithy. That's what he's telling you. They are in darkness. You have to understand that up front. When people attack each other and judge each other, what they're really doing is attacking people who don't know better. They just don't know what they're doing. You've got to forgive them. That's where mercy comes in. That's why Jesus Christ says the weightier matter of the law, told you very plainly, is that we've got to have justice or judgment. And if we don't have that fairness, then it isn't God's judgment, it's man's. So we've completed today's session and program, and look forward to seeing you again.